Thank you, Toastmasters and guests. The diabetes doctor last week said that I'm too fat, obviously. She said, you need to go on a diet. She said, I'm not going to sugarcoat this because then you'd eat that too. In the 21st century, we've seen a massive increase in cases of gluten intolerance, gluten sensitivity, gluten insensitivity. And it's kind of fascinating that this has sort of come up and worked its way into our culture as a thing when it wasn't a thing ever until the last 20 years. What has caused this massive rise in gluten intolerance, gluten sensitivity, gluten insensitivity? The first thing we have to understand is what gluten is. Gluten is a series of proteins in grain crops that help the body to work, but they also help hold foods together. We all need various proteins for our bodies to function physically. What has happened in the last 20 to 25 years is a change in the way grain crops in particular are being grown. Historically, for thousands of years, we put grain seeds in the ground, we water them, or we rely on rain. In the last 100 years, we've developed irrigation to keep water on those seeds so that those seeds sprout, become crops. They pull nutrients out of the soil, they pull water out of the soil to help them grow, help them develop clusters of new seeds. One seed into clusters of new seeds, like corn on the cob, like a wheat seed turning into a wheat head. This is just how things have worked for thousands of years. The unfortunate part is weeds also grow with the seeds. Historically, we've used manual labor. We've relied on manual labor to work the fields during the growing season to try to keep the weeds down. But manual labor, especially coming into the end of the 20th century and the beginning of the 21st century, becomes expensive. So we developed a different way to control weeds. We started using poisons in the fields to control the weeds. This becomes kind of a dicey proposition because poisons that can kill weeds can also kill the primary crop. So how do we separate the primary growing crop and protect it from poisons while still destroying the weeds? What we have developed, what we have allowed to develop by the 6 major biochemical corporations, we have genetically modified the seeds so that the plants that grow from those seeds will not be affected by the poisons. The primary poison being used over the last 25 years in the fields is called Roundup. We also use Roundup in our yards. We use Roundup in our gardens. We try to keep it away from our food because we don't plant genetically modified foods in our own garden. But we do allow glyphosate and Roundup to be spread into the fields where our grain crops are growing. And those poisons will uptake into the plants along with the water, along with the other nutrients, so that in the grain heads that we get, the corn that comes off the cob, the wheat that comes out of the wheat heads, all of the other grain seeds have glyphosate inside of them, inside of the kernels, inside of the seeds that we eat. They will also, if we seed saved, those new seeds that we saved will have glyphosate from the beginning, which will make it harder for them to germinate and to sprout. So now that we have genetically modified seeds, we require the farmers to buy new seeds every year. Farmers sign contracts with the companies that develop the genetically modified seeds to not seed save, to only buy their seeds, only buy their fertilizers and other nutrients, all from the one company. The 6 companies, Monsanto, Syngenta, Dow, Bayer Passive, and Pioneer. The weeds are figuring out Roundup. The weeds are finding ways to evolve, to survive Roundup. So it's an ongoing process with those seed companies to develop new genetic modifications to the seeds. And these genetic modifications are not the same thing as hybrids. Hybrids is where you combine two different varieties by cross-pollinating. This is actually going into the grains and modifying their genetic structure, modifying the DNA inside of those seeds. Very different from hybrids. But the quest to continually develop new ways to make DNA for these seeds becomes very important to us so that we can develop more powerful versions of Roundup, more powerful versions of glyphosate to try to hold down the weeds. With wheat in particular, we do another interesting thing. We spray glyphosate on the fields 10 days about before the harvest comes. The purpose for that is whatever weeds have grown anyway, it causes them to wither, so that when the combine comes by and harvests the grains, just the grain heads are sticking up. But the grain heads still have glyphosate on them. So what I'm going to suggest to you this morning is that the debate over whether a GMO seed or a GMO grain is healthy for the human body or not healthy for the human body is going to go on for a long time to come. There are people who can argue either side of whether there's safety in those seeds. But what we need to know is that those seeds that are tested, researched for health safety, those seeds are virgin seeds. Those are seeds that have not been in a field under the influence of glyphosates and Roundup. So I would suggest to you this morning is that you understand when you're eating GMO, when you're allowing companies to get laws passed to not label GMO products, what you are enabling is for your family to put glyphosate in their mouth, in their body, and to experience the health problems that we're currently calling gluten intolerance. Thank you.